Anyway, so we're going to talk mental toughness, right?
Well, mental wellness. I want to dive a little bit into depression, especially depression that men deal with, and you know what the root cause is. I'll unpack a couple of different aspects. Most, and I want to be very clear to anyone listening, is at no point are we medical professionals.
Nope.
We're not telling you what to do. We're not advocating for a medical procedure. We're not telling you not to go to your doctor, not to follow your heart. We're giving you an experience baseline of how we see it. And again, as the name says, we're breaking it down in the layman's lab. Mm-hmm. Depression to me has always been something difficult to comprehend. And I'll explain why. Is up until a certain point in my life, I did not believe it existed. I believe depression was a state that is more related to a choice and not willing to dig yourself out of a hole.
I've heard people say that.
And, and the reason I say that is because up until I understood more about what depression was, I never felt that I had ever dealt with depression. Until I understood what it was, and I really truly understand is that we all deal with depression, and it's a cyclical system that we go through. And some of us have tools and mechanism of diving out of it, and others of us don't.
Let me read the definition of it.
Yeah.
The Merriam-Webster definition of depression. A mood disorder that is marked by varying degrees of sadness, despair, and loneliness, and that is typically accompanied by inactivity, guilt, loss of concentration, social withdrawal, sleep disturbances, and sometimes suicidal tendencies.
Okay, so now let me break this down in another way. You're a young kid, 18, 19, you have a breakup with a girl. Everything you read there is what I experienced in a breakup with a girlfriend when I was a young kid.
Yep.
All right, every single one of them. So now my question is they say clinical, right? So what you read there to me sounds like something everybody will go through at some point in their life, regardless.
Let's read a little bit of the sub-bullets.
Yeah.
A reduction in activity, amount, quality, or force. A depression in trade, so it's basically a lowering of physical or mental vitality or of functional activity. A long-lasting period of greatly reduced general economic activity marked especially by widespread unemployment. Okay, that's like an economic depression.
Yeah.
I think those sub-bullets were kind of interesting. The reason I even read those because a reduction in activity, amount, quality, or force.
Yeah,
that's physical.
That's physical, right? But all of those can be attributed. If you think of yourself as a human being on a day-to-day basis living,
yeah,
I'd say that you at some point, whether it be a loss in relationship, you break up with a girlfriend when you're younger, divorce, loss of a loved one, loss of someone important in your life, change of job, loss of house, buying a house, selling a house, moving. Every single one of those comes with certain bouts of exactly what they maintain would be depression.
Yeah.
Now, there's a second school of thought when you listen to experts like Gary Brecker. And he says when you look at anxiety and things that lead to depression, a lot of those mechanisms that lead you there can be attributed to lack of certain minerals, vitamins, and essential nutrients within the body.
Yeah, for sure.
Dietary, right? So my personal experience,
for me.
yeah, right. And we're gonna touch on it now.
There, but.
So for me, when I think of the word depression, right, and I take it back to my wife, who is now an NLP and hypnosis practitioner, and her who dealt with depression when she was younger, and I was actually medicated for depression and had to get off that medication. She said it just made it 10 times worse because it felt like, her wording to me was when I took medication, I was just numb. There was nothing, right? We are designed to have bouts of depression as human beings. I believe we're also designed to be able to find the solution of getting yourself out of that. I think our modern world, and in one sense, the comfort of our modern world, when I say comfort is, imagine you're a caveman, right? 10,000 years ago, and you're with your wife, you're with your kids, you stay in a cave, and you have to go out hunting, and your daily focus is, am I going to be protected by animals? Are we going to survive the night because there's lots of things that want to eat us?
Yeah.
I have to go out and hunt tomorrow and make sure while I'm doing that, my wife's going to be and making sure everything's safe, right? So you're talking about an environment where there's no time for depression. Right. So depression's a very modern standpoint, because you look at people, they talk about I think they talk about it in North Korea. So there was a storyline that I read about a girl. She's been pretty popular in the United States, and she explains her experience of living in North Korea. Right, she escaped North Korea. I think and the escape in itself is a horrendous story of, rape and human trafficking. Which
is this recent?
I think this was about 10 years ago. And she's written books. I think she was on Joe Rogan as well, right? Yeah. And she talks about how she escaped, but she talks about life, on the day-to-day life in North Korea. And she talks about the fact that there's not enough food, that everybody's starving. Yeah. I've heard doctors from South Korea talk about people who escape from North Korea, and these people go over and they take an X-ray of them, and they are filled with parasites, like parasites that we treat normally here.
Right.
They don't have treatment for. There's no medicine. Right. The government structure keeps everything away from them. And she explained, in her words, part of what she explained is, she says the government keeps you just healthy enough that you can do what they need to do. But if you speak out against them, you say a word against the government, that someone comes to fetch you and they kill you, right? She talks about walking down to a river and seeing bodies laying there that no one ever comes to pick up. So horrendous environment. But all you're doing is trying to make it from one day to the next day. Literally every single second of your day is survival. You're so hungry, you can't think about anything other than the next meal.
Right.
As sad and as horrible as the sound is, depression doesn't really exist there, because you're never ever in a position to allow your body to get to that point
surviving.
Where you can, all you're doing is surviving. And a lot of third world countries, the idea of depression is ridiculous. Not that it doesn't exist or depression isn't a forte, but depression is mainly a first world country symptom. And a lot of the reason that depression is because when everything else in your life is, you have no threat of life. If you live in North America, think of this, right? There is no good reason, right? Let me rephrase that. There's lots of good reason, but there's no immediate threat reason to have to exercise. There's not. No one's going to chase you, right? To the largest degree, no one's going to chase you. No one's out to get you, right? You can sit in your house. You can eat Cheerios all day. You can, drink soda. You can go up to 400, 300, 400 pounds unless someone has to take you out with a crane. You can live that life for the entirety of living in North America, and nothing's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
There is no immediate reason to be better. When I say no immediate reason, I'm not talking about the good reasons that we're going to get to that will actually help you avoid depression. I'm just talking about from a survival aspect of a human being who has to survive one day to the next. In this country, there is no need from a survival aspect to be healthy, to be in shape. None of that really resonates to the point that you're gonna die if you don't do it.
I think you can, like the way you explained the North Korea stuff and some things that are ailing in other countries versus here, there's a couple of variables in my opinion. Like the average American has no clue what it's like to live day to day in survival mode.
Yep.
Now there's definitely people that are in struggling spots, so I'm not gonna blanketly say everybody, but the reality is even the worst of conditions is nothing like North Korea in this country, right? So there's a component of entitlement that plays into it, in my opinion.
Yes.
But then you also have to see it as what's a big denominator in this country, and I'm not going to necessarily say the words, but to me, you go to a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being younger, going to see a doctor for something, like my elbow injury was one. They're quick to write a script to me to help take the pain away. And I was always very hesitant to take it. I did get a couple of scripts post-surgery, but I only took them if the ibuprofen wouldn't work and I had no other option. And I think what happens in this country oftentimes, I've seen the elderly do this, they're so quick to run to a doctor, and the doctor's the end-all be-all for everything. But modern medicine has really changed over the last 50 years.
There's always a pill for every problem you have.
Yeah, and I think, again, not to get into this, that's not the part of this podcast to go down this rabbit hole of the pharmaceutical world.
But it plays a role.
It has its place. play a role, but it has, in my opinion, doctors and medicine have their place.
Yes.
I'm not this type of person that says you should never take medicine.
Yeah.
Because there's some ailments. I have been deathly sick. My wife has been deathly sick. You had to have drugs to take the edge over what was
100%.
killing you.
Yes.
Literally. So I am an advocate of doctors. I believe in modern medicine. We're the best country in the world when it comes to our being able to take care of someone. The things that we can do for people medically is incredible.
Yes.
However, I know of situations, again, out of privacy for these people. I don't necessarily want to talk about one of the instances, but I know of someone that took his own life. Well, I know more than one person that have taken their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure, but I know some were on prescribed medicines. And I'm not saying that's the culprit, but I think if you really step back and evaluate, like, was that really the solution? And I think you just mentioned with Helene and some of the stuff that she's gone through, I do think that it puts you in this place of, like, you know, you're not your normal self. You're not actually as balanced as you may think you are.
Well, if you look at it, let's look at it from a different standpoint. I think RFK recently made a statement. For the United States, which has some of the highest level of healthcare in the world, right? Like, the technology here is second to almost anywhere, right? Say maybe a couple of places in Europe. For a country that uses 4 times more medication per capita than any other country on earth, that has access to almost every type of medicine you can think for, yet from a first world standpoint has the sickest population on earth, right? In regards to depression, in regards to chronic illnesses, in regards to health issues, the United States is at the bottom of the layer with all of this technology, all of these pharmaceuticals, all of these companies.
Have you seen this picture yet?
Yeah, they're different in the food dyes.
Yeah, like,
right.
The RFK just outlawed the food dyes, like all these like thing that's relative,
right? And all of those those food dyes were put into that food again from a marketing standpoint to make it super attractive to children. Mm-hmm. But from a second standpoint, is all of those things are neurotoxins to certain degrees and just literally poison. The point I'm getting at when I talk about depression is depression affects first world countries way higher. Now, there's an argument to be made for the fact that you say, well, a third world country doesn't have the access to psychologists and psychiatry and all this. But what they also don't have access to is those people on a day-to-day basis, their main thing they're worried about is where they're getting the next meal. Right, that's the focus point. Is what am I going to eat today? When you're a kid in Africa in a village, you have to walk 5 miles to go get water, to drink, to bathe, to live for that day, every day. You have to walk 5 miles just to get water. Then you have to go to school. So their life doesn't really allow you the option of being depressed, right? And now I'm not saying that depression doesn't exist there. What I'm saying is, it's the same as if you're in that environment, is once you are in a relaxed state where you know that safety is no longer an issue and you know that all these other things, depression becomes the question of who am I as self? What is my worth in this world? Yeah. You look at yourself from a higher level. Once you do that, I feel depression becomes something that people start innating within themselves.
Well, I would go so far as to say gratitude. We talk about gratitude often. I don't allow myself like I said it today to a guy. I had a mentally tough day today. Okay, but I rectified it quickly because I saw it setting in, and I sent somebody a message of positivity. Yeah. I expressed gratitude out loud. I'm breathing. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. That's way different. It's keeping me from going down the rabbit hole 100%. Of depression, if you will. I hate to say depression because I'm not in agreement that it's something that.
Well, again, this is it's a touchy subject in one sense, but it's also a subject where, when you read, as you just did, what depression is from a definition standpoint as it addresses to a human being. I can see I've had that many times in my life, right? I think everybody has. Mm-hmm. Now, the second question that we go through to is, what's the difference between staying in that state and releasing yourself from the state? Now, again, there could be psychological aspects to it,
Yeah.
right? Which again, go see a psychiatrist, go see a doctor. There may be medication required. We're not going to say that everything's solvable by a gym workout.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. However, when we're talking about the average Joes, as we are, going through your day-to-day basis, we're all going to hit lows.
Well, and for those listening and men, and I experienced this firsthand, when your testosterone is non-existent, if you're in that low range, which I was like right around 200, I can't remember the exact number, but I was around 200. I know guys that were in the 100s. Your mood is affected by that.
Everything's affected.
Like everything's affected, but like there was emotional highs and lows. There's mood swings. You get triggered by stuff that you're like, why am I triggered? Which I'm thinking about a conversation I had with a guy this morning that I didn't think to tell him that. I need to talk to him about TRT. But anyway, when I got on a testosterone and balanced myself out, it began the process of making my mood more consistent.
And then also it brings everything else in, right? Because when we're talking about depression, and we're going to focus on men in this discussion, men have a burden upon them naturally, right? Because you are the provider. We live in a modern society where, let's be realistic, women have every ability to make their own money, to run their own systems. The women don't technically need men to provide for them anymore, right? That's a society that we've built and that we're happy to build, because I think it's important to women to have that ability. However, it's changed the dynamic of purpose for men, right? And men to be purposeful in their lives is something that you have to really dig down in. Now, what you've spoken about is the first thing to fix when you are feeling you're in these lows. The first thing to fix is, honestly, always for me, and this is my personal take on this, is when you start fixing the physical, right? You feel better. As you said, TRT is a hormone replacement. When you adjust your testosterone levels, what happens is it pushes up serotonin levels. It puts up dopamine. You hit a gym workout, you get endorphin rushes. There's a lot of things that come with it.
I like to say dumbbells will save your life.
Yeah, but but underlying is, if you try and hit those dumbbells without TRT or without addressing the underlying issues,
it's like running on ice.
It feels like it's impossible. Once you address those issues, right, and there's many different mechanisms. It's improved diet, improved supplementation take. We live in a modern world where, I've had people say to me, I don't want to take TRT, I don't want to be around my whole life. Okay, but you also realize that, do you want to take vitamin C your whole life, right? Do you want to take vitamin D your whole life? We live in a modern society where the way that we've lived in the society and the modern values of our society have taken away a lot of things that naturally we are required to be better people. Yeah. Even killed people, even mentally. So you're adding in these things to help you raise your levels. Yeah. Once you raise your levels, you get to a certain point, and then it's like there's an eye-opening. The minute you get on TRT, you change your diet, you start hitting the gym, all of a sudden that gives you the physical ability. You're no longer tired. Yeah. You're no longer feeling depressed. You see light at the end of the tunnel. You start seeing changes in your body. You feel changes in your body. And those changes come in many different forms. Now what happens is, now it opens up the idea to now look at your purpose, and you can start dealing with mental stress. You can start finding tools of addressing it. You can start finding your spirituality. You can start speaking to God. You can find ways to address yourself in a way that brings you out of said depression.
Yeah, and I think, because I live this too, brain fog, struggle to focus.
Let's do this exercise. Pull up side effects of low testosterone. Okay. And the reason we're going to pull up the side effects is because oftentimes, and I'm going back to Gary Brecker's breakdown of it. A lot of times when you go to medical practices, doctors, psychiatrists, what happens is most of our medical institutions are designed to deal with one symptom at a time. And dealing with the symptom doesn't often deal with the root cause. And as Kevin said, it's not to say that you avoid doctors at all costs. No. I do like, for instance, Dana White has a very interesting take where he says the people who see doctors the least amount in their life are going to live the longest. Totally. And there is a point there.
I agree with that.
Tell us, what are your symptoms of low testosterone?
So low testosterone can lead to various side effects, including fatigue, number one, reduced sex drive, erectile dysfunction, decreased muscle mass, mood changes such as depression or difficulty concentrating, And it may also increase in may result in increased body fat and loss of bone density, making bones more susceptible to fractures, like falls, right? Yeah, I think that's a good summary there.
Right. So if you, any man, right, out there listening, take those symptoms and apply them to yourself, as you are going to feel like a pile of shit. You are going to feel horrible.
Here we go. Here's the opposite of it. It helps you maintain. So testosterone helps maintain a number of important bodily functions in men, including sex drive, sperm production, muscle mass and strength, fat distribution, bone density, red blood cell production.
Yeah. All of which attribute to a positive lifestyle and a positive feeling in your life. So when we're talking about mental wellness for any of those people who are sitting in dark places, and we've been in dark places, we've spoken to people who we're actively helping get out of those dark places. Once you start putting, I always talk about when you sit on a plane and someone's explaining to you how to put on that oxygen mask. Right. Everyone is you fly a commercial flight, they're going to do the safety test, right? Or the safety show. When they do this, they're showing you that regardless, if you have a child or wife or someone who needs assistance, what do you do first?
You help yourself, and then you put your mask on the child. You help
yourself, because if you cannot breathe, you cannot help them breathe.
Where you're going with this.
If you want to help yourself and you have a family to look after, loved ones, in order to help the people around you, you have to be the best version of yourself. Part of that is starting to find active ways to get yourself out of your depression, out of your holes, putting things in place. And I always find that exercise, good supplement routines, a good diet will always give you that first edge. And then the next level of work starts.
I've said this, and we'll really be thumping a component of this in our group, our men's group, but faith and fitness for me, I'm a believer in God, so for me faith and fitness are on the same level. Spirituality and fitness to me have to be the number one, because in the end, I love the example you just used of being on the plane. Like, it's so true. Like, put your mask on first, then help the women and children around you, but you're taking care of yourself first. In a crisis, you're being told by the professional to take care of yourself first. That's a really good analogy, because if you want to be the best for your family, let's face it, our audience is men. You want to be the best version of you, you better focus on you. And
make sure that you are in your best position to help those around you. And that means taking care of yourself. It's not taking care of yourself selfishly. It's taking care of yourself in order to be the best version of yourself for your wife, for your kids, for your loved ones at all times.
I did a story a few weeks ago about 10 things that 43-year-old Kevin would tell 23-year-old Kevin. And one of the things I said on that that got a lot of people responding to me on was basically your real job starts when you get home. And to me, that's the harsh reality that so many men fail to realize, is like, when we go home, we go to work to provide and take care of our families and loved ones and the people that we care about, so that we can enjoy life and do what we want to do outside of our jobs, right? So what happens is we always give our jobs our best, and we get home and give our worst. Well, that's bullshit. So you have to flip that script, and you go, get home and give them your best. Now you're getting to work.
Yes.
And that's really hard.
Because that's where the work really counts.
That's right.
Right. You're never, I love this analogy of saying you're never going to sit on your deathbed and say, I should have worked more hours. You're going to go, I should have spent more time with my family. Should have spent more time with my wife.
Wish I would have retired earlier.
Right. Yeah. All of those things are line into this. Now, I want to take a couple of steps back. If you're in the level, when you're sitting in the point where you're at a low, it's very difficult. We had a conversation earlier. It's the billionaire who's found God, right? So, a guy who's got $1 billion writes a book telling you
money's
that
not important.
Money's not important. Only God's important. Well, it's really easy to say that when you have $1 billion in the bank. Tell that to someone who has no money.
That's right.
Right. So, in this conversation, I'm speaking to the people who are struggling, who are sitting at the bottom, and are listening to me and going, well, it's easy for you to say, you've got what you want. No. You have a choice, right? That choice on you that, David Goggins talks about, your inner bitch, right? It's that voice inside of you that's telling you, don't get up, don't do it, don't make a plan, don't do this, don't do that. It's the voice that's telling you, don't. We all have that little voice.
Yeah.
It's the one that's telling you, don't get out of bed. Today's not the day. It's the voice that tells you it's okay to be a victim. Mm-hmm. It's the voice that tells you it's okay if you don't. Shame, poor you. No. The first thing you have to do is, one, silence that voice.
Yeah.
There's two voices in your head. There's that one side that's going to tell you, listen, get up, go, do it.
Yeah.
That is easily silenced by the one that creates a victim. Right. And yes, depression is a real disease. Yes, depression is something that you can struggle with, but it is also something that you can overcome. Mm-hmm. And in order to overcome it, you have to hit a precipice of being able to say to yourself, I am in a bad position. I am not. No one is accountable for me. No one is responsible for me. The only person that can dig me out of this hole is me. Yeah. And you have to make the conscious choice of saying, I want to be better. I like going back to the analogy of my wife who does NLP and hypnosis for people, right? She, no matter what she does, right, as a practitioner of her skill set, none of it will work if you do not come to her with the mindset of, I want to be better. Mm-hmm. If you have not consciously made the choice and said to yourself, as I want to be better, she cannot help you.
I would add my journey into this because I remember being in the corporate world, brain fog, fatigue, feeling like I was losing my edge. I was trying to continue to get promoted, but felt like there's just struggles to keep up, etc. Hated what I saw in the mirror. And I was like, I know there's better out there. Yeah. I knew there's a better path. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what's up on paper. I'm a successful guy, but something's got to give. Yeah. This sucks, right? So I started by taking an action, and the action started with, I know there's better. I'm going to go find it. And I think like the journey that leads you down this road is there's a lot of men out there that are probably, they don't want to admit it. Like, yeah, I'm in a bad spot. I'm in the darkness. I'm in a rough spot, but I'm going to pretend like it's still fine.
Our ego, men's egos generally, we don't want to exude weakness.
We suffer in silence.
It's a natural, innate survival process for us. We cannot show weakness because if you show weakness, again, if you were the caveman 10,000 years ago, weakness will get you killed.
Well, like, I mean, I've shared this stuff with, like, you know, all my shit. Like, I think there's a reality of it's okay to be vulnerable on the things that need to be like hey, I don't got my shit together, I need help. I think there's like you mentioned the word victim. My friend, I'm kind of bouncing with my thoughts a little bit here, but there's a point. But like my friend Jason, who is a SEAL, I've always heard him say victimhood breeds victimhood.
100%.
And I didn't understand that for a little while. For whatever reason, I thought I got it, but I was like, I don't get it. But anyway, I also knew a guy would come back with the same problem every time.
Yeah, it never changes.
Same complaint. And he would try, I'm doing stuff to fix it, but it never changed. Yeah. Because he wasn't actually doing the stuff to fix it.
But it's you can either find 1,000 problems for every solution, or you can find 1,000 solutions for every problem. Well, that narrows it down to where this is leading to.
Yeah.
Your state of mind, whether you like what I'm saying or not, whether you agree with it or not, you're entitled to your opinion. Your choice to be better is exactly that. It is a choice.
Well, here's my thing. Whether this is a wife, girlfriend, mother, father, brother, sister, friend, if there's someone in your life that's toxic and trampling you, okay, and you know that person needs to be cut out, but you say because of who they are, you keep them in your life.
Yeah.
Well, then deal with the ramifications of that.
It's a choice.
You chose. You can sit here and say, "Oh, well, I didn't choose my parents." But if your dad is a drunk that's negative and toxic and berates you, whatever negative component you want to fill in there, and you say, "Well, it's my dad. I don't have the ability to choose who my dad is. I'm going to just keep him around." Well, then you have to deal with the outcomes of whatever happens from that. And if that person, regardless of who the person is, like you have chosen to say that you have the place in my life. You didn't break the social contract with that individual. Well, if you've accepted that they're there, then don't complain about the negative fallouts that occur because of it, because you chose not to annex that cancer out of your body.
True. But everything you're saying comes down to where most people, right, and people I've dealt with through my entire life is, and it took me a long time through my adult life to kind of really realize this, is everything you do is a choice, right? It doesn't mean that the choices you're going to make, doesn't mean that if you have two choices that either of them are a good choice.
Yeah.
But either of them will lead down a path, and that choice is inevitably your accountability. You make the choice.
Yeah.
When you're sitting in a hole, right, and it could be going through a divorce. It could be, I lost my job. When you're doing that, you are still leading a choice. I always like guiding people down the line, right? When you talk about homelessness, right, North America, United States is the one country in the world where homelessness is not an excuse. It's a choice, right? And let me explain. I'm not taking away from anybody who's gone through it. You could get to a point where you are homeless and you could feel like you could be in a position, but let's be realistic. Most people who are homeless and stay homeless are affected by two things: alcoholism or drugs.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The third thing that there may be is severe mental illness, right? But those are generally the factors that keep people in that line. If you go to California and you go have a look at San Francisco, Los Angeles, the homeless camps there are entrenched with what?
Drugs.
Mental illness and drugs. You could hit the situation. Let's talk through this. I lose everything, and I find myself, and I have a friend who's gone through this. I lose everything, absolutely everything in my life. Right, so I no longer have a house. I lose everything, and I find myself on the street, and I find myself on the street in North America. What options do I have? Homeless shelter. There's literal places that you go to that'll give you a bed, a plate of food, and help you find a job across this entire nation.
Yeah.
But they have one very specific rule: no drugs, no alcohol. Right? That's the only rule. Actually, it's the only rule I'm aware of that they really enforce. You cannot come in here with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. So most people who want to stay on drugs and alcohol, who've made that choice, right? And yes, addiction is a real disease and it does affect people, but it is still a choice. The same way as people who have gotten over alcohol, they hit a certain spot as an alcoholic and went, I cannot live my life like this.
Yeah.
And they made a conscious choice to get help.
Drug and alcohol addiction saddens me, to be honest with you. That's the one thing I'll say. Like,
it's very sad.
It just, I've seen people firsthand. I had a family member, with drug addiction. Like, it's really just sad what happens there. And that episode on Joe Rogan with Rick Perry, and I forget the other guy's name, where they talk about Ibogaine. I hope they get that in this country because it's needed, because it'll help with that. But anyway, I agree with wholeheartedly what you're saying. Like, to not necessarily talk about homelessness, but you have a choice in life on everything. And a guy that we're helping right now, the stuff that he went through, I distinctly had a conversation with him that said, so what are you going to do about it? So you can sit back and go, woe is me. Shit punched you in the mouth, kicked you in the nuts, threw you to the ground.
Now
it
what?
Fucking hurts. What are you going to do? Lay there and cry about it?
What do you do now? And that's why I'm pointing out the homelessness, right? It's not to focus on the people that are homeless, but what do you do if you wind up and you're in that situation? And I literally know people who have been in the situation.
Wow.
So what did they do? I had to find a shelter. I stayed there for a couple of weeks. There's actual guides in my community who then try and find and help me a job. I had to work a shitty job packing bags at a grocery store for a year. I eventually made enough money that I could get my own place. Once I got my own place, I dug myself out. I found a job. I bought a car. I now have a house. I now live with my wife. I have my kids. The cyclical nature of it is shit will happen to all of us. Yeah. Different levels. The difference is, what do you do when it happens? Do I live in the despair?
Don't fucking quit.
Don't quit. Do I live in the despair and I go, woe is me, and I play the victim? Or do I sit down and I go, no, I will get up and I will make something of myself and I will dig myself out. It won't be comfortable. It won't be warm. It won't be cozy. It'll be difficult. But I am going to make something and dig myself out of this hole. And there's countless examples of people that have absolutely dug themselves out of these holes.
I mean, I would argue I'm one of those. You're one of those.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna get into a place that I can kind of talk to this without getting, the frog in the throat and emotional. But everything I've been through, all my shit. And about a year ago, when I woke up to my reality of where I was, I took, I literally I distinctly remember sitting outside after an exchange that occurred. And I'll be real with this. Like, I remember sitting there going, would I be better off at the bottom of the pool?
Yeah.
And I went, fuck that, dude. That's not you. So I sat there in my moment, my darkness, if you will. And I literally said to myself, what are you going to do, dude? And I took action. And I remember distinctly, this is why I love fitness, man, but I lost touch with the guy that was a fucking stud.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize the person. I was getting him back at this time that happened. But I lost touch with the guy that, in my younger days, was confident, had swagger, was, believed in himself. I lost that, right? Because of the corporate world and the family man shit. And I was like, that's not, this isn't me. What happened, right? So anyway, my point is, I was like, it's time to get him back. And so I dove even further into fitness with you. Our workouts were intense and exactly what I needed, because I needed that drive to walk out of the gym knowing that I did something that other people can't do, because I thrive off that. I thrive off of knowing that I'm doing something you can't do.
Yeah.
So anyways, along this journey, I kept saying to myself, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And I remember a time, I think I even texted you about this. It was an active rest day, maybe. I don't know. Or you were out of town. I don't know. But we were training separately. And I ran 75 sprints in front of my house. And the part that I probably didn't tell you about was dude, I would say half of those sprints, I was beating my chest. Literally, I had my shirt off outside running. It was dead of summer and hot. I was beating my chest and saying, nobody better.
Yeah.
Nobody better. Because I had to believe in myself to overcome the darkness and to get out of the fucking darkness.
Yes.
Because I was the only body, and I hear all these guys on social media saying, nobody's going to save you. Nobody's going to come get you. And they're all fucking right.
Yeah. It's all on you.
It's on you, man. It's you versus you. And you can lay back and be a fucking pussy and lose it all. The woman that you care about, the job that you had, the whatever. Sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
Be a lazy piece of shit. You're going to lose it all. Or you can take fucking action. Then you can fucking fight for it.
Yes.
And you can say, I'm not going to be the victim. I'm not going to be a fucking pussy. And I'm going to work my ass off and show the fucking world, even if nobody else fucking sees me, I'm going to show and prove to myself. We talk about you versus you all the time. And in the end, I had every reason to give up.
Yep.
You know my story. I had every fucking reason to give up. And I chose to fight. And I'll be honest with you, man. There's a lot of people that would have told me to fucking quit.
Yeah.
Most people did. That actually knew. And in the end, I don't know how my story will finish, but I know it won't be without me fighting.
And that's the most important part, is the fact that no matter what's happening to you, no matter what you're going through, and there's phases of this. It's not always I've lost everything and I have to start over. That happens, right? Yeah. But I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about it could be an unhappy point in the relationship that you have with the woman you married, right? We've all had that. I've been married for 15 years. In every scheme of things, I look at that 15 years as the best 15 years of my life. However, there's been extremely hard times in there.
Marriage is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
They're super hard, right? Now, those bad times I've had in there, I could have looked at those times and I could have given up. And I could have gone through this, and I looked at it and I said, no, I won't. I am going to fight for what I want, for what I believe in. When you and I'm not saying that if you're in a bad marriage or in a bad relationship you should fight for it. There's a different stance when if you're with a person that you don't resonate with, right? If you're in a marriage that does not work for you, if you're in an abusive marriage, I don't know if you saw it, but Alec Baldwin was doing an interview a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months now, right? And he's standing in the interview and he's busy talking, and the wife that he has now, I don't know what her name is, she's busy talking, and he chimes in on what she's saying. And she literally shushed him and said to him, you keep quiet while I'm talking. Right now, there's many men that are in a relationship with a spouse, and it's on both sides, men or women, that don't see them as an equal and kind of, shit on them. There's bad relationships. This is also a choice. This is also the point where you man the hell up and you go, okay, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm going to stand my ground. I'm getting out of this bullshit. I'm going to be the best version of myself, right? If you're in a relationship where your spouse makes you a better man, right, and things are hard, fucking work.
Yeah,
fight. Drive.
I think marriage is hard as a whole.
Yes.
It's complex. It's difficult. It's not easy. You and I have had countless conversations around marriage and things. And I don't believe in staying in a marriage that's toxic, where there's toxicity, right? Where, if you're just human beings dealing with human being shit, overcome your differences, work through it. It can be done.
Become a better person.
Become better people, right? But if you're physically, mentally abusive, like God forbid there's physical abuse in there, there's times where I totally think that, the right decision is to get out of those situations, right?
And that again falls in for making that choice to again put yourself first, to be your best version, so you can live that be a better human being. And sometimes the people in our lives, you were talking about those social contracts. What we're talking about in the social contract is every human being that you interact with in life, right? Some people have a season, right? And you have to be okay with it. It's a lot of times is where things like nostalgia will kick in. You will see something happen and you'll have this nostalgia reaction to it. It's because that time and space in that era gave you a certain feeling. Realistically, that feeling will never ever reoccur. Right. When you're trying to hit a nostalgia point of something that you had with friends at that time, there was a social contract.
That's a really good point.
There was a time and a space for that. If you're going to keep trying to reignite that exact feeling instead of realizing that had a time and a space, and now what happens is I'm going to evolve, I'm going to become better, I'm going to become a different human being, and I'm going to have these times that are going to be different with different people at different times. But if you keep trying to relive the nostalgia of one space, you will drown.
Classic example of that is veterans, truthfully, because a lot of veterans, and I experienced this too, is like we go out, we deploy, we're gone. Like in my case, my longest deployment, 16 months, I think. 16 or 17 months. I don't remember exact dates, but anyway, you put your life on pause for that period of time, and then you go out, and whatever you experience in that deployment scenario changed you. Okay, but your loved ones knew you for who you were before you left, and as the person that you were before you left, and then you come back and you're different. But the traumas and the things that you've experienced are also going to come to the surface at some point in time in the future. You don't know when it's going to come up. It's going to happen. But you're having to readjust and come back around to it. And so the whole point of that is like, all right, now fast forward years later, and this is my story. I had to realize that the guy that I was before the military isn't going to come back.
It's not the same person.
He's not the same person. He's changed. He's evolved, and you have to accept it. Almost like, free that person and release that guy, because
and you're responsible for your loved ones to explain and kind of go in, and you may get there and may not be explainable. They may not see you the same. It may not work out.
I couldn't explain what was going on with me for many, many years.
So deployment specifically, right? So that's an interesting take for me because, I've never been deployed in the military, but I can talk about our lives in South Africa and living in that pressure cooker of that stress of living in a very dangerous country. And when we got to North America,
there's a lot of similarities, right? To those.
We got to North America and it hit us hard. Like we've said before, it doesn't hit you when you're there because it's survival mode. So what I'm saying is depression won't hit you if you're in survival mode because your body doesn't have time for it. It has to survive. Right?
You're living in it, so you don't think about it.
So and you can't afford to think about it because you might die. So
which goes back to the North Korea example in the start.
100%, right? So now you take yourself out of that environment, and now you put yourself back into the safe environment. But now you have all of that bullshit, like in your case, 16 months of deployment and all the things you dealt with. Now it's the first time in 16 months that you can actually sit and go, holy shit. And even if you don't want to think about it, is your unconscious mind is going to start bringing that stuff up, and it might not come out mentally, you might not physically think about it, but your body's going to think about it.
Well, I think you can relate to this. I saw a video the other day. I should have sent it to you, just didn't think to because it wasn't really a topic we had been on, but there was a video from veterans. A guy that put it together was like it shows like where they're in the Middle East. I don't know if it was in a convoy or what. I don't. They were just showing you you're deployed, and then like the reality. Here's the reality for a veteran coming home from deployment.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're back at Starbucks or a restaurant or any random place. And in my case, my last deployment, I flew private air.
Yeah.
So I get off the plane. I get on a plane, like literally, what did I fly? Qatari Airways or something. So anyway, you come back. You're not with a group. Like with military, they bring you into like a reception type thing.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of like a, here, come back to reality. My last deployment, I flew civilian air and in civilian clothes. And like, you're not...
It's not the same.
Reinitiated. You're just basically like literally Sam picked me up from the airport.
You're thrown back in.
So I fly in, I think, Dulles. Got a flight to Tampa. I went to baggage claim, picking up my bags, like literally like a normal person. I'm standing there with all these people that are like, have no fucking idea where I was just at for the last 6 months. And she's picking me up like it's another, pickup at the airport. And then all of a sudden I've got to readjust and acclimate back to life on my own.
Because and this goes back down to you versus you. Because for everyone else, right, they don't care. It's not their accountability. It's not their responsibility. No. It's got nothing to do with them. It's your battle with you.
That's right.
Right. And when you carry things like that, like PTSD and those syndromes, which I've carried from South Africa, and again, it's not the same, but you're living
you guys had some pretty
you're living in a
stuff.
super dangerous environment, and now you're taken out of that, and all of a sudden you can breathe. The minute your body can breathe, it's like going through a hard workout. While you're going through the workout, you're not thinking about it. When you're done, you go, oh my God.
Right.
Like it kind of hits
like
you, right? Those are the things that I'm kind of talking about. And that's an extreme version of it. But what's going to happen to you happens to everybody. Because whether we're talking about a seasoned military vet who comes back from Afghanistan, or we're talking about a kid of 25 who's now dealing with the first loss of a loved one, or the breakup of a girlfriend. Everybody's ability to deal with stress is slightly different. Experience will give you better tools, generally, sometimes they don't, to be able to deal with stresses. But essentially, it's all down to what you do.
Yeah. Recently, I read that for men, specifically for men, a breakup or a divorce from a female that you truly love and care about is second to losing a loved one.
It's 100%, because we process things differently, because men, and I don't think it's really different for women. If you love and care about someone and they're no longer in your life, I'm living a life, whether it's marriage or just a relationship you're in. You live together, you see each other every day, you enjoy each other's company, everything's good, right? And then for whatever reason, that's ripped out from under you. Now, for men, it's slightly different in the modern era, because if you're in a bad marriage and you get out of that marriage, your life is technically going to be ruined, right? Because just of the way that the contract of marriage works, the breakup of marriage in that, the other person, and this can go for man or woman, that person can literally ruin the rest of your life, right? So there's also an innate fear in, I think, a lot of men about committing to marriage, because once they commit to marriage, there's always the risk that this can be ripped out from you. Right.
I had a little bit of that.
And
I was 29 when I got married.
You know what I mean? And there's a very thin line that they talk about. It's the thin line between love and hate. Those things can flip really quickly. So if you are in marriage, I feel it's very important in relationships, especially in marriage, to ensure, one, learn and get to know the person you're with. Also realize that person is not going to be the same person you married. And then third, make sure you put that work in to establish and make sure that marriage stays strong. And you can't control what another person's going to do, but you can control what you're going to do.
Let's say a podcast about marriage, but what's the work? I think that's where a lot of people, we should have an expert on here to help us identify what the work is. Yeah. But the reality is, I think going into marriage, you think you know what you need to do, what you're supposed to do. So you don't really know what the work is, but PBD talk. There's a book that he suggested. It's 100 questions to ask your future spouse. There's a book about it, I guess. So I thought that was interesting. I might try to find it and order it. Yeah. But anyway, the PTSD thing. I think there's plenty of veterans out there. Did you see the story yesterday of the guy that was shot? Did you see that?
No. What happened?
Providence here. It was, from what I understand, he's a veteran. I'm not 100% on that. was wearing like a vest, like a Kevlar type vest. Yeah. Had an AR walking down Providence Road over there by Lowe's. And then sounds like no one else was shot. But basically deputies arrived on the scene, told him to drop the firearm. Of course he didn't. He apparently went to raise it, and then of course they ended it. Rightfully so. It was a justified shooting in my opinion. It's sad because I think the guy was a veteran that probably was dealing with some, personal issues, ailments, whatever else. My point is, like, a guy like that, there's so many things that people go through and experience in life. Yes. It's all relative. And what you think is the problem is oftentimes not the problem. Mm-hmm. But you have to find a path to adjust, to like address it. I have done thousands of dollars worth of talk therapy. Mm-hmm. You've heard my story about talk therapy. I still will go every once in a while because I just like that I don't have to pick up and tell the whole story. I can pick up where I left off last, right? And there's an outlet for me to just tell the guy what's going on.
Just talk.
And like, he aligns with me. He's a guy I've known for years. I personally value that relationship because I know, in the grand scheme of it, it helps me to release it. It doesn't necessarily fix anything, but it helps me to release it. So therefore, I guess it is fixing, right?
Yeah.
Hypnosis therapy was that was magic for me. I hate to say the word magic because I don't want people to get confused what it actually is, but like, it was like so valuable because, and I don't know if I should say this to give it away, but whatever, the process of it.
Yeah.
The writing of what happened, the going back historically, you begin to uncover it yourself of where, like for me, I legit always thought, and you even said this to me because you knew me before I did hypnosis, obviously, but I always thought my deployments were my issue.
Yeah.
I always thought that. I was like, I don't get how I felt. I had guilt to even think it was my deployments that were my issues. It feeds it. It does fuel things. But when you really start to identify by going back in your history and your time and like literally reaching into the memory bank of things that have occurred, that you've buried these thoughts.
That you didn't even think were an issue.
And as you start to just put it together and you write, and you realize, like, holy shit, like what I thought were my issues wasn't.
There's always a root cause, and it's never what you think it is.
Yeah, of course. And we talk about the subconscious, and like, but again, it goes back to my journey of this was when some of my shit hit the fan. One thing I will share is that I remember my wife saying to me, "I'm tired of the anger."
Yeah.
And I went, "What anger? I'm not angry." And then I really started to think about that. But I also recall, in those moments of anger, I would find myself questioning, why did I act like that?
Yeah.
Why did I go from like this, like I was even, like what I thought was an even temperament, to like I could, like I'll use my dogs as an example, not my current dogs, but my previous dogs. One of them would do some things when he would come, like do this certain thing. I never did anything, but he would cause anger in me that I could feel start at my toes and go to my head and back down, that I could literally just
and if you really think about it now, you go, there was no real reason for that.
Right. I never understood, like, why? What was that? And I would even, like, I had conversations with my dad about it. My parents even said to me, like, after the deployments, they go, you changed. You used to be this easygoing, carefree, happy person, and now you get angry all the time. And I could never understand it. Now, I do think there's a hormonal imbalance that was in play. So having my blood work done, having a hormonal check, getting my testosterone leveled out, my hormones back to normal.
That helped.
That plays a role in it. But then also diving into like, well, why did I get mad at that dog over that? Yeah. Why did I react to my wife in that circumstance that way?
What are these small triggers that become these large?
And they're truly subconscious triggers. Yeah. And until you start to dive into like you have to want to know. You have to be curious mind to say, what is it that's causing me to do that?
I would take a step further. I'd say curious is one step, but you have to be willing to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Have that conversation. I think Jordan Peterson has a great analogy where he says, any problem or thing, anything that is affecting your life negatively, problems, whatever you want to call it, if you sit quietly on the corner of your bed and you have an honest conversation with yourself, right? you will come down to the answer. You may not like the answer.
Yeah.
And this is where most people shy away, because we'd have to go down and go, you know what, I don't like what I'm talking about. But essentially, you have to be willing to dive deep into your psyche, which is funny enough is when you mentioned ibogaine. What ibogaine does is it does it forcefully. It rips you into a altered state of consciousness that rips you apart 10 times over to force yourself to look at yourself from different angles.
Right.
Now, if you can honestly do this with yourself, and you can honestly look at who you are, the good, the bad, the things you like, the things you don't like. We all have things we don't like about ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
But once you can honestly look at it, and you can, first of all, forgive yourself, forgive the people that around you, and then sit and go, you know what? I am in control. Those things I don't like, right? What's happened has happened. However, what I do from this point forward is 100% on me. And then you take accountability. And once you take accountability, it changes the entire landscape of what you're going to do.
I love that, because I think about situations that have occurred, like in this journey that I've been on and the changes that I've made. I'm still a human being.
Yes.
I still mess up. The difference, though, is I recover faster. Like,
yes.
Like in the relationship with my wife, like I said, you know, she was tired of the anger. I have done a much better job with anger. What I have recognized that's important that I do is, if I am out of line, I acknowledge it and apologize for it.
Yes.
Because I know how I am. Or one of my favorite things, I don't know if it's effective, she would have to answer this, but like if something's ailing me, I'll say, I'm going to be vulnerable with you here for a minute. And I soften it to where I'm not, like, it's not me coming at you.
Yes.
But I think, again, like, we're human beings, okay? And accountability is huge, okay? Yes. But then the other thing, maybe you kind of caused me to think of the word attraction.
Yeah. Attraction
for a lot of, like, it's not to break down what was mine, I'm not even going to try. But attraction for a woman is very different than for a man.
Very different, yeah.
Okay. So a woman has to be mentally attracted to me.
Yes.
And it comes and goes.
Yes.
If I'm not cautious, right? So what I'm really working on today, like, this is something that I'm truly trying to be better about and focus this. Am I attractive as a man? Not like how, like when I look in the mirror, do I see an attractive male? Yeah. Meaning, like, even you and I, right? Is Jason attracted to me? Meaning, he wants to be in my company.
Is he attracted to your energy? Is the right?
Correct.
What you're talking about is energy. Yeah. It's not a physical thing. It's not something that you can name, but it's a measurable thing.
Does he want to be in my presence?
Yes.
Does other men want to be in my presence?
Yes.
Am I a positive influence in my community? And I think both of you and I, like, in our communities, around other people, we are.
Yes.
So now I go, how do I take that home?
Yes.
Am I attractive to my family?
And it's got
do nothing, my kids want to be around
yes. me? Yes. And good energy, good positive driving energy, right? Which is done selflessly, without expectation of something coming back.
Boom, bingo.
Just living your life the best way you can generally attracts people really well.
Well, I think about this, like, what do men do, man? And I was guilty of this shit so much. You and I have had conversations about this. And this is a game changer for anybody listening. You do the dishes and you go, I should get sex tonight.
Yeah. You're expecting a reward for an action.
Right. And that's taker energy. Okay. Yeah. There's a guy out there that talks about that. Anyway, you said this to me, and this really resonated over a year ago. The dishes need to be done, right?
Yeah.
The clothes need to be washed. The bathroom needs to be clean. The kids need to be taken care of. Whether I do it or she does it, that shit needs to happen, does it not?
Do you want a clean house? Do you want clean dishes? Do I want to walk to the cupboard, right? When I go to the cupboard and open up and grab a glass, if I'm going to grab one out, do I want to have to constantly wash someone? Those are everyday tasks.
Fundamental things that have to happen.
Right. You want to live a good life.
Yeah.
There are chores to be done that are going to make your life easier and are going to make your environment nicer.
If I do that shit without an expectation on the backside, then I just do it.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether or not sex is a follow. It's just a thing that needs to get done.
And I'm not measuring it against what my wife does.
Right.
I've realized that if you live in a marriage, right, and you live in even a relationship, and your relationship is always a measuring stick. So you're sitting, you're always measuring, what did I do versus, I'm only going to do something when she does something. If you're living in that life, dude, you're not living a happy life.
Yeah, and if I totally agree. And if we're the 40-something people that are listening, right, the 40-something, we had parents that were traditional.
Yeah.
In the large grand scheme of it, where in my household, my dad went and did physical laboring jobs, and my mother took care of everything around the house. So when my dad came home, he ate dinner, sat on the couch, and then went to bed.
Yeah.
That was all he did. Mm-hmm. We as kids had chores. My mother took care of stuff. That's what I always witnessed and saw. So subconsciously, as I fast forward into my life as an adult, subconsciously, I was almost expecting some of that, even though I thought I didn't expect that.
And you didn't choose a partner that embodied that.
No, my partner was very much like we're partners, we're equals, we both do things, and we did a lot of stuff over the time. But subconsciously, there was a point in time where I was just like, well, what did you do all day? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So again, it goes back to like the word accountable, where I would almost be like her accountable person. Like, you need to tell me what all you did, and it's bullshit. Like, that's not how that goes.
It's not how it goes.
And you lose sight of, like, if I just do my best, right? Yeah. And I just become the best me, and I'm still working on this, but am I attractive at home? Is my kids excited for me to be there? Is my wife happy to be? And if you're a man listening to this, I would ask yourself this question. Does your family want you at home, or do they want you to be at work?
Yeah. Are you, when you walk in, does your family want to spend time with you, or are they happy at the times that you're not home?
Yeah. And the harsh reality is these phones are a massive distraction. All the electronics are massive distractions. But the reality to me is, like, do you create an environment for your family and your home to be fun? And again, I'm still working on this shit. Yeah. I'm still trying to be better. But I literally asked myself, I was told this, but I had to ask myself, do they want me here?
You've got to
ask yourself. I'll be honest.
You've got to ask yourself that.
The answer hurt.
Yeah, because this is the honest conversation, right? If you sit down and you look at how you conduct yourself on a daily basis, it's the honest conversation of you versus you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down. I'm having an honest conversation, going, okay, am I a person that I would want to be friends with? Am I a person that I would want to hang around? What do I do when people are around me, right? Do I exude a toxic behavior? Do I victimize things? Am I dramatic? Do I overextend drama within the life? You know, if someone walks up to me, and I'm relating this back to what I do in my daily life, right? If you've known me long enough, you walk into a conversation with me and you go, how's things going? There is a rare, and I'd say it's almost a never scenario where I'll look at you and go, things are terrible, life is bad. Life is never happening to me, it's happening for me, no matter what's happening in my life. So I'm always exuding the energy of positivity, good life. I'm not being positive, I'm not faking it.
Yep.
I'm choosing to sit on the side of the bus where the sun shines, instead of sitting on the side of the bus where the rain cloud is. I'm choosing to be the best version of myself, because as I've said in many of these discussions, is I cannot live in what's happened to me. I can't live in the past, right? If I were to carry on, and every time that someone speaks to me, all I do is I exude all the past depression and things that have been bad to me, and I just tell everybody that, who the fuck is going to want to spend time with me?
We said this yesterday. Like, there's a guy that we know that I literally whispered to you yesterday, like, there's just a fucking black cloud around that guy always.
Because every discussion that you have with them is always going to be on the negative, right? So it's always
like, it just, what it causes for me is, like, I don't want to
spend time with it, right? His energy drives you away, because 100%. What happens is you want to spend time with people that exude the same type of energy, right? And it goes down to, you know, we talk about creating your own reality. Creation of your own reality means I envision something, I see it, I plan it, I do it, I make it happen. That's how you make your reality happen, right? Now, in order to make something happen, you've got to exude that. Now, energy begets energy. Energy attracts energy, right? I've found the more that I've put out the mindset of, I'm going to be present in this moment. I'm not going to overly focus on the past. I'll take lessons from it, but I don't bring the bad with me. Agreed. I take lessons from them and live here.
Totally.
Whatever is going to happen in the future is out of my control, so I'm not going to overly anxiously worry about it. I'm living the present. And as long as I'm living the present, I'm trying to be the best version of myself. All I have is positive energy. All I've got is good, because you're alive. I breathe today. I live. If I do that, what do I attract? I attract the same type of energy back to me, and that's been my experience. Totally. I've also seen those people that exude the opposite, those ones that bring the depression of the past with them, or anxiety of the future into their present. They bring more of that into
the sky's always falling. Guess what? That's all you're going to have around you.
It's good. And the thing is, there's one worse to it. You're going to make that your reality.
Yes.
You're going to create that. So I've often found the people that say these things, that live in that, bringing the depression and bringing the anxiety of the past and the future into their present.
Yeah.
Whenever I speak to them, shit, it's always happening to them. Always. Now,
Always.
Is it happening to them any more or less than it's happening to me? No. The difference is, when it happens to me, it doesn't happen to me. It's happening for me. It's just part of life.
That's right.
And I deal with it, and I keep exuding the right energy.
I think you make a point about the future, okay? And I think there's a struggle that I had this. Generally successful people struggle to not think about the future, okay? And they always are planning for the future because, and this is something I dealt with, you're taught from a young age about the future.
Yes.
With 401ks, retirements, whatever.
Yeah.
In business, you're taught, at least I was taught this in the corporate realm, we had to see around the corner in business. So you're constantly looking forward on what's going to happen in the future, predicting what's going to happen in business so that you don't get surprised in business. Okay?
100%.
Makes sense on that regard. That's business.
Not even it makes sense in life.
It does make sense in life, but I think what we struggle with, though, and this is my struggle, I honestly can't control what's going to happen in the future. Okay?
That's the point.
However, I can plant seeds and cultivate my seeds every single day.
Which you do where? In the present.
Right.
Okay, so let's break that down into an analogy. Okay, so if you're going to so overly worry about the future consistently, right, or the past, regardless, 2 points in time that don't exist anymore and doesn't exist yet, and I'm going to consistently throw myself into those. Let's talk about that, right? So in business, there's a list of things that I can, as you say, I want to look around the corner. So what I can be is I can be on the cusp of what's happening today that may affect tomorrow. I can read, I can absorb, I can plan, and I can walk away. Because what happens is, at some point, I've done everything I can possibly do today to ensure that what happens tomorrow is planned for and laid out. Like you say, you plant the seeds. Realistically, when you realistically break it down, how much time does that take? As much time as you need. Right,
yeah.
So maybe call it a couple of hours. So once I'm done with that, what's next? Now, do I spend the rest of the day worrying about it, or do I go, well, I've done everything I can do. I've planted my seeds. I've put in those calls. I've made sure I've done everything's ready.
Yep.
Everything else past that point is out of my control. So now what do I do? What do I focus my time on? Do I focus my time on worrying about it, or do I focus my time on where I am right now?
Yeah, live in the moment.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's not a absence of planning. It's not an absence of taking lessons. It's realizing that only up to a certain degree can I put things in place for that future. And once that's done, I should stop worrying about it.
Yeah. And I think to go back to the original point of this podcast, of the mental toughness or the mental wellness side of it, like, look, we're still figuring stuff out. Yes. I think we've made huge leaps and strides in our lives compared to some others. There's people well in front of us. There's struggles that we have. Everybody has struggles. But the idea is, like, one, you don't quit. Two, acknowledge it. Like, 100%. Acknowledge the fact that you don't have all the fucking answers. I think that's why people resonate with us, because we're real and we're vulnerable and we share. We don't have all the answers to every little thing. But being okay with, like, I don't know. That's a great point. Something else I've learned, and this is in relationships. I used to always get real defensive when things would come up with my wife about, like, certain things that I would do or not do. And I've tried to adjust myself to really go, yeah, you're right, I did that. Or, yep, that's just how I am. Stop apologizing. That's unattractive behavior. Again, we talk about attraction. Yeah. That's unattractive behavior. Own it. Yep, that's how I am. Yep. I forgot to do that. It is what it is.
And now, commit to being better.
Commit to being better, yeah. Like, I do think keeping your word is important.
Honesty is a big one for me.
Honesty is big.
Listen, when it comes to this in a relationship, right? I think, and this is not just in a personal or
any relationship.
Any relationship. Honesty and loyalty are two very important things to take to heart, right? If you do not live your life in honesty, and that's honesty with yourself, honesty with your partner, honesty about your weaknesses, your strengths, what you're working on, what you're struggling with. You're a human being, right? Is a very an interesting analogy, which I'm going to add to this. Okay, so there's a lot of people in this world, right, and right now struggling with who have been through sexual abuse, right? Now, there's a very interesting statistic of why people who have been through sexual abuse carry so much guilt, right? Is imagine you've gone through sexual abuse, okay, and that sexual abuse, through going through that sexual abuse, what happened to you, as much as it was wrong and you didn't want it, there was a physical reaction where you liked it. Right, and this is a very, very important analogy that I'm bringing up here, because a lot of people that carry guilt of sexual abuse, right, especially young people who have been sexually abused as children, there is an aspect of it that they went through their sexual abuse that they feel guilty because some of it was pleasurable, right? Because they're human beings. Your body is reactive, right? It's not mental, it's reactive. It's doing naturally what it's going to do. And a lot of them carry this lifetime guilt because they feel guilty because there was a part of it that their body liked. Their psyche didn't like it. They knew it was wrong. They hated what was happening to them.
But
their body reacted to it, right? So it's this eternal struggle they have. Now think about that, right? Is you have to be, that's an extreme version I'm bringing up. The reason I'm bringing it up is because there's going to be things that you do as a human being, right? That you're going to, guilty pleasures, right? It could be sexual guilty pleasures. It could be watching pornography. It could be eating something, eating a cheesecake in the fridge 12 o'clock at night. It doesn't really matter what it is, but there's going to be a guilty pleasure. You have to get in touch and go, you know what? My body does react to certain things. However, I have to be understanding that I have to have the discipline to realize that I am in control of this body. And I can't always control how my body reacts to things, but I can control what's happened in the down of how I deal with it in the present.
I'll share a very PG version of that with the kids in Easter this past weekend getting a bunch of candy, right? There was a point in my time, man, I would have snuck a bunch of the chocolates and whatever else. And, I'm not going to lie, I had a couple of them on Sunday, but their bags of candy are in the fridge right now. Yeah. They're there, right? The guilty pleasure of the past would have been like, hey, I'm going to sneak a few of these candies without them knowing. And there's like to your point, like there's a guilt nature when you're out of shape and overweight and you eat that shit and you hide it. There's that internal struggle that those, I shouldn't be eating this, but I'm eating it.
Yeah. And that's a good point. So what do? Fucking own it.
Yes.
If you've done something that you shouldn't have done, you know what? I fucked up.
Yeah, I did.
I messed up.
That's what it is.
And now what I'm going to do is, instead of hiding it and making as if I didn't do it, go, I did it.
Yeah.
It was wrong. Yeah. But you know what? I'm going to be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I may mess up next week again, but when I do, I'm going to realize I did and I'm going to be better again.
The example I shared with you in the text messages, and I'll probably post some stories about this, but essentially the difference between like people, in my opinion, that are figuring shit out in their life is they close the gap faster. Yes. We all fall off the horse. It's about how long you stay off the horse.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to close the gap much faster.
It's probably the most important thing here is we are all going to go through shit.
Yeah.
Right. We are all going to hit rock bottom. We're going to hit top. The difference is when you realize rock bottom isn't rock bottom.
Right.
And you can always get back up. That's when you start realizing that, okay, when I do, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to have problems. Right. Things are going to happen in my life. Some controllable that's accountable to me. Some uncontrollable that are circumstances I can't control. They're all going to happen.
Yeah, the idea, like, look, this whole episode has been about your back's against the wall. Every day of life, you can look at it that way.
Yes.
And you can be like, woe is me. Or you can say, I'm making strides forward every day. Yes. I'm making choices to better myself every day. Sure, it doesn't always go how I planned. Sure, I have some setbacks, but I'm not ever giving up.
Yes.
I'm always pushing forward.
And how far you push forward doesn't matter as long as you are moving forward. Some days a win could be I didn't put sugar in my coffee.
Yeah.
That could be a win.
Yeah.
Some days it may be I threw all the sugar out of my house and I haven't eaten it for the last 6 months. That's a win. Mm-hmm. Just take the win.
Right.
And continue to win. And count every single one, and every single one makes a difference.
I don't think men celebrate their wins enough.
Oh, 100%.
I think we're too guilty of like, well, the wins are an expectation. We struggle to pat ourselves on the back.
Yes.
Celebrate it. Like, I'll give an example. The other day I ran into a guy that I hadn't seen in a while. I appreciate that he was trying to make a compliment, but he said to me, "You look skinny." I'm like, skinny? I look jacked, son. I literally said it just like that. Just as joking.
Every guy. Listen, there's the amount of memes online about you don't want the lady next door to go, oh, you're looking real slim today, because our purpose is, you should be telling me I look muscular. But again, it is a compliment.
It is, and he said that he knew, like, he was like, dang, dude, I'm just being complimentary. Yeah. I'm like, I know, man, I'm being funny back. Like, he just missed my humor. But I will say, like, that is a touch of some of my, arrogance or my confidence coming back. Let's say it like that.
Because you're willing to take those things, you have a smile about it, you change. Yes. It also, that's the beauty of when you start realizing in the lines of depression, the lines of the challenges life is going to throw you consistently. No matter what it throws you, it's going to throw... And you're not going to get away from what it's going to throw. It's going to throw it at you. And sometimes it's going to throw you over the big pile and sometimes the little pile. The difference between each one is how much you go and you go, okay, it's happened. Now what?
Yes.
What is your next step? How do I climb out? How do I get better? And then again, take a lesson from the past. Next time, how am I going to avoid? If it's in my control, how do I avoid this from happening again? What do I put in place? Relationships, marriage. If I've had a rough period of time with my wife and we've gone through it, what lessons do I go, oh, I hope this never happens again, and blindly follow forward? Or do I go, what happened in there and how do I use what happened to ensure that next time that happens, how do I conduct myself differently to change the outcome?
PBD's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, I'm in the middle of that one, and I'm not going to say I have all the answers, but one of the things that motivates me, I think I've chosen my enemy wisely around fitness and wellness, and that's the old me. All right, the old me literally is my enemy. Like, I know what that looks like. I know what it felt like.
It's the only enemy.
It is the only enemy.
It's the only. There is no other enemy.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
In the end, like, I think with relationships, like relationship stuff, or like whatever it is that you might be going through, like choosing the motivator wisely.
Yes.
Because motivation is false and it's temporary. So it has to be an enemy so that it actually fuels your fire.
Yeah.
To keep burning and to keep going stronger than ever, because again, motivation is temporary and fleeting. Discipline has to take over. And I just think, I don't know, man, like I could go on and on about this whole topic of mental toughness, because you're always going to have things pop up.
Always.
You're always going to have struggles. You're going to, even when you're figuring shit out, like all of a sudden something's going to come out, it's going to be an adversity.
Yeah.
And all these things are tools to help you overcome adversity.
Yes.
Because without adversity, you're never going to, like, have to have
That's how you grow.
That's how you grow.
And to close off this episode is, if you're dealing with any type of depression, a slump in life, things that are affecting you, and you're a guy, like, from our standpoint is, take a positive step in the right direction, right? Go get your blood work taken. See where your testosterone levels are. Go to the gym. Go for a walk. Start doing something differently every single day that attributes a positive impact to you. Right?
Arnold Schwarzenegger said a walk a day cures a whole lot.
100%, right? Because you can sit in the same problem, and you can do the same things you've always been doing, which has led you to where you are, or you can take a positive step, right? Eat less, drink less, think consciously of what you're doing, meditate, breathe, look in the mirror and forgive yourself.
Yes.
To move forward.
That's a big one.
Find ways and tools and mechanisms. There are thousands of them, right? We'll have them listed on the website, but there's literally thousands of taking every day, take one positive step in the right direction, and then tomorrow take 2 steps, and then take 3 steps. Have a workout. Start with walking. Then go to the gym.
Yep.
Go get your bloods tested. Get your testosterone levels right up. Start a supplement regime. Start going to groups of people. Interact with people at the gym. People that you look and go, I don't know. Go have a chat to them. Be the difference in the world that you are depressed about. The only way the world gets better is if we make it better by being the person we are. Right. Don't complain about how everyone else. No one else is your responsibility, only you.
That's right.
You want to be the difference in the world, be that difference. Be that person.
And real quick point about, you said, look yourself in the mirror, give yourself grace. It's easy to get angry with yourself for allowing yourself to fall off the horse the way that you did. I lived this. So you can be angry with yourself or have the mindset of like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I acted that way. I can't believe all these things. Or you can be grateful for it and choose to say, like you've said, the lessons are learned from the things that were, and allow that to let you overcome it. So be great. Like, as much as I hate where I was, I'm grateful for it, because I can now relate to those people that are going to come in our paths And I can be more direct with these people because of what I've experienced. And I can say, I'm being this way because I was you.
Yes.
And that's a gift. That's an opportunity for me to help someone else break out of that mold to say, I was in your shoes and I can help you. I can help guide you out of it. So that's now a gift, and I can have gratitude for that.
Life happens for you, not to you. You can choose your outcome. And for everyone listening, in this episode is, regardless of depression has different levels, right? We spoke about the extreme levels, which was homelessness and being abused as a child and having to deal with the repercussions as an adult. Those are extreme. There's the minor ones. Those, I'm having a rough time at work. I'm having a rough time in my business. I'm struggling. I'm going through a tough time with my kids. I'm going through a hard time with my wife, in my relationship with my parents. It doesn't matter. You're going to have those tough times. The difference is, in those tough times, that's when it's most important to choose to be the best version of yourself.
That's right.
And find those mechanisms to put yourself first so you can support everyone else around you.
Yes.
We're men. We're designed to be that support structure. We're designed to be the tree that stands that everyone else swings on.
That's right.
Right. Be that tree. Be that person. Stand up. Be strong.
I like it. It's good way to leave it right there. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.